with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. My broadcast today is No No and Broken Bones. So let's jump right into the no nos. I thought I would give you a no hitter from a guy who's not pitching his first no hitter, but he was pitching maybe his third, fourth, could have been more than that. But anyway, on today, and of course, today is the May 12th, 2026 edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. However, we're looking at Sam Jones, Sam Toothpicks Jones. And on this day, he pitched a no hitter, a 4-0 no hitter over the Pittsburgh Pirates as he was playing for the Chicago Cubs. And in winning the game, he becomes the first African American to hurl a no hitter in the National League, right? And this is one of three no hitters he would pitch that I know of. So let's go back and talk about the other two that he pitched. And last night, I did have a little bit some discussion about Sam Jones and that he was not always the best control pitcher, but when he was right, he was awfully good. And so Sam Jones was doing his thing on this day, right? So let's see what he did. Now, these no hitters didn't come on this day, but let me tell you what they were, okay? So we're going to go back to one on August 4th, 1949. He threw this one against Owantanana or something like that in Minnesota. Actually, usually I call the library. So how do you pronounce the name correctly? And so that I always give them. And fortunately, I got busy today and didn't call the library. So you got the crazy pronunciation. Could be right, could be out in left field somewhere. All right. So anyway, he won that game, a no hitter, 13-3. So you kind of say these are some of those no hitters that are hidden in plain sight because you figure a no hitter, maybe the team got shut out, the other team, but no, it's not always the case. Bill Gatewood had a number of those no hitters, but so on this particular day, Sam Jones had one. Now the local team scored 3 runs in the sixth inning. Now remember the final score is 13-3. So after Jones had walked the bases loaded, right? A guy hits a fly ball, so guys tags up, no runs, come home and score. And then the next batter hit to somebody and they made an error, right? Here comes another run home. So then you got the players moving around. There's a runner on third base, and would you believe it or not, Sam Jones balks. And when you balk, the runner can advance one base, which he did. And now they have 3 runs, but they never got a hit. And that's the important thing. So he pitched a 13-3 no hitter. And then on September 7th, 1949. Now, this is after the time he played for the Cleveland Buckeyes, but before he got signed by I think he was originally signed by the Indians. So before he was signed by the Indians. So this is that little in between period where African American ball players are not making big money in the Negro League. So they're having to try and find places to play. So he went up to Rochester, Minnesota, played up there, and Marlon Carter went up there with him, and I learned a lot about Sam from Marlon, talking to Marlon about this great pitcher. All right, so on September 7th of that year, 1949, he tossed a 10-0 no hitter and struck out 15 members of the Austin, Minnesota team, and of course, he walked 6. And you always have to, when you're talking about no hitters by Sam Jones, you always have to talk about the walks. All right, and let me. I think I explained it just a little bit last night when I was talking about Nolan Ryan, why he never won a Cy Young because he walked so many people, right? And and when you're walking a lot of people, you may or may not win the game because you hurt yourself quite a bit. So if you look at Nolan Ryan, just give you an example. Ryan, 1972, struck out 329 men, walked 157. 1973, struck out 383, took the number up. But he also took his walks up, 162 walks. And 1974, dropped down just a little bit, 367 strikeouts. But those are big numbers. Those are big numbers for strikeouts. But then his walks went right back up again with the most walks he probably ever had in a season, 202. And we talk about Nolan Ryan a whole lot. But guys, if you were around following that and you knew the story of how some of these guys played and when you were watching them, you would have a different opinion than maybe just some of the things they give you in history, right? But Nolan Ryan threw a lot of no hitters. I think he had 7 no hitters, right? So when he was right, kind of like Sam Jones, he was awfully right. Now let's look at Sam Jones. Now his nickname was Red, and whenever you have a African American, his nickname is Red. That usually means he's a fair complexion, right? Just in case somebody doesn't know that, right? So anyway, 1955, he struck out 198 batters and he walked 185, had more walks than he had strikeout, almost, right? Okay, so how about this? 1956, he struck out 176 batters, but he improved his walks. So he dropped it down to 115. So he had a pretty good year. Then 1958, he had the highest number of strikeouts he had in the majors, and it was 225. And how about this? He dropped his walks down a little bit more to 107. And in 1959, he struck out 209 people, and his walks came up just by 2 walks, 109. So he went from 107 in 1958 to 109. But some of these great pitchers, man, they would walk people, and it would be a story of its own. So anyway, I don't know if that's something interesting to you. I'm going to check and see who's online tonight. I'm trying this new uh, visual here, and I can't always tell who's on the line now since I'm doing it this horizontal. When I was doing vertical, I could see you coming in. Now, if you are here and you want to leave a message, the message will pop up, and I can read the message real easy. But I just can't tell who's in. All right. But if you like these kind of broadcasts, go ahead and subscribe. We're dropping a lot of knowledge and information right here on this place. This is the place to be. Now, I hear stories about, oh man, who's the greatest baseball historian and who's the greatest storyteller. I'll let you be the judge of that. But I can tell you, when you come here, you're going to get your money's worth. All right. And you're not going to get the same old cup of coffee warmed over because you think about who's talking about Sam Jones in such detail today. So let's go ahead on. I'm going to give you another one because I also named my broadcast Broken Bones. So what are we talking about, Broken Bones? So let's go over 'em. So I'm going to go back to May 12th, 1907. And Pop Watkins, he suffered a broken leg in a game at Oil City, Pennsylvania. When a player, now Watkins, of course, he's the colorful player on the team, and he's playing first base, and a guy comes and he landed on his leg, and he broke a bone in Watkins' leg just below the knee, and so he will be out of the lineup probably for the remainder of the summer. And I'm going to check deeply and make sure that that is correct. If he comes back in the lineup, I'm going to mention that he made a comeback, right? And he was moved to the hotel, and unfortunately, they didn't list the name of the hotel. I would have loved to have known that, what hotel they stayed in. And that's where the team was lodging. And then he began his journey back home, and he lived at 94 Rockwell Place in Brooklyn, New York. And that was in 1907. Guy, a great player too, man, and played over 20 years. And he's certainly somebody that I think we need to talk about him a little bit more. Then I mentioned this guy on several occasions. I knew his widow, and then also his widow's niece also gave me a lot of information. His name was Eldridge Chili Mayweather. He passed away here in Kansas City. Of course, Mayweather went to St. Stephen's Baptist Church with Hilton Smith, right? So they came up from Louisiana together and they went to church together right to the very end, right? So Eldridge Chili Mayweather, he broke his leg sliding into home plate at Bossier, Texas, as the Kansas City Monarchs won a 5-1 win over the Huber team. Now, this is an interesting one because I wrote about it in this book. This book here, I write about this, right? Because he was a great hitter, had a lot of power, and so he's playing first base for the Kansas City Monarchs. But when he broke his leg, it never quite healed as well. And thank you. I see Ron Hill coming in. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate the note because I can't see who's coming in. So thank you. So he broke his leg and he never quite healed the same. So he's playing first base. And in 1938, the Kansas City Monarchs bring on John Buck O'Neill. So Buck O'Neill starts his first game in Kansas City is an outfielder. And so Chili Mayweather is really the better player. But Mayweather is slowed because his leg never healed, but he could still hit for power. And he hit more home runs than Buck O'Neill did that year. And probably had more hits. But his days were numbered with Kansas City, so they sent this guy over to St. Louis when St. Louis came in the league in 1939, and that, for all practical purposes, ended his career with the Kansas City Monarchs after about 3 or 4 seasons. But he was certainly a wonderful player from Louisiana, and he was a highly decorated World War II veteran as well. I think he received a Bronze Star and a few other things and was in quite a few battles. So we don't want to forget about him. And when Veterans Day comes or Memorial Day, I think I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about Chili Mayweather. And this year, I'm sure I'm going to go out to the cemetery and I always do. Sometimes I go out and play taps and do things like that. So we may have to do that again. All right. So two broken bones on the same day, one in 1936, one in 1907, and one no hitter tossed by Sam Two-Pick Jones. You know, there's only two players I remember that were famous for having a toothpick in their mouth. The other one was Yale Washington with the Kansas City Royals, the shortstop. He always played with the toothpick, and Toothpick Sam Jones did the same thing. So, all right. So let me hit a few other things and then I will be out of here. Okay. How about this one? How about some games interrupted by the police? Is that something that you probably find fascinating? How about this? May 12th, 1900, E.B. Lamar's Cuban ex-Giants, they had they tore up the other pitcher, 15 hits and a 17-7 win over the North Adams team in Springfield, Massachusetts. And every Giants batter picked up at least one hit, but the game was interrupted by the deputy sheriff, right? His name was Frink, Frink, and part of the gate receipts went to Harry Donovan, who claimed he had a prior debt. And I'm not sure if it was with the Cuban ex Giants or the North Adams team, but anyway, he wanted his money after the game enough for him to get his money. And I've seen that happen before too. I remember that, look, I'm going to go back to my music days right now. I remember there was a group from Kansas City. But now, before I tell you about the group from Kansas City, I have to tell you about the other group. We were playing in Mobile, Alabama. Um, Mardi Gras Club was the name of it, Mobile, Alabama. And, you know, some great ball players from Mobile. So we're down in Mobile playing, and there's a band from New York. So they played the night before we played. So we went to hear them because we're coming in the next night to play same place and they're going to be on the way. So to their next gig. So they found out we were from Kansas City and they said, "Hey, did you ever hear that band Smoke?" I said, "Yeah, we know Smoke." And they have a hit right now and been played all over the radio and everything. He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, they stiffed us. We backed them up in a show, and they never paid us." They said, "But we have an injunction, so if they come around, we're going to get our money." And so I just blew it off. You know, we hear musicians say all kind of things, right? So about a month later, we're still down there on that southern coast. We were playing Biloxi, Pascagoula, Gulfport, New Orleans. Pensacola. So we're down there still playing. And we see Smoke is coming to a club in Biloxi, Mississippi. And we weren't really far away. So we said, let's go over and hear Smoke because they're from Kansas City. We're from Kansas City, right? Now, we didn't have a record out, but they did. They had a song. And if you can look this up, it's by Smoke. The song was I'm So Lonely. That's the name of the song. And they had a big hit. They were going real strong. And so we decided to go over and hear them play. So we went, and the show was just late getting started, right? And my cousin was the MC. He was a local radio personality. Freddie Bell was his name. Later on, he switched to gospel and came Deacon Bell. But back then, he was Freddie Bell on the Hot 103, which back then was KPRS. So anyway, so Freddie is their MC, and they're down there at the Throne. The Throne was the name of the club in Biloxi, Mississippi. So it was like a big house, and you played up on the upper floor, and you always had to be careful because they didn't have a banister, man. You go right over. I, and you'd be surprised some of the place we played. We're on the Chitlin circuit too, by the way. So They were playing. The show was late, and so we're wondering why the show late because most of the groups start on time, right? Start on time, and so finally, an hour and a half later, the show starts, and they do a pretty good show. So after the gig, I go backstage, and I was talking to some of the guys and smoked some of the band members, and asked them, say, what took you guys so long to get started? They said, well, some group from New York came in with the sheriff and they said we owed them money. And so they took all the gate receipts. I said, well, how much did you guys make? They said, I think we made about $10 tonight per man, and the room was full. So these are true stories that I saw coming along as a musician. So if you go look up Smoke, you'll hear their hit, I'm So Lonely. Just go look it up just for the heck of it, guys. This is the fun part of telling these stories that I'm telling. And that's why my broadcast is kind of unique because I do blend not only the baseball stories that happen, but I blend a little bit of my interaction with the players. And these are not current players. These are players from that I might have interviewed 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, some of them 40 years ago. And I'm telling you things that you cannot get anywhere else unless you read one of my books. And I have many of those these stories haven't even made it to the book, right? So you're getting a live rendition of some things that I hopefully through this medium here will live long after I'm gone. All right. So we have that score, and now let's see. I think I have one more that was interrupted by the police. Let's see. Let's see. I think I have one more. Um, all right. I'll give you this one. All right. This one is kind of weird. This is kind of different too, right? So at Jamestown, New York, Sheriff Hutton arrested all the members of the Cuban X Giants and the Oil City team, members of the Jamestown Interstate Baseball League, for playing baseball on the Sabbath at the local park there. And the local ministers' alliance had brought forth the complaint, and the players went to court. All of them pleaded not guilty and were released. So that is two games where the police were involved. I'll give you another one. Now, the police were involved in this one after the game, right? And this is May 12th. Now, the other game I just mentioned that up in Jamestown, that was May 12th, 1907, the same year as Pop Watkins broke his leg. However, May 12th, 1912, the big news coming out of Lebanon, Pennsylvania, is that William Palmer, these are players, Isaac Coleman, William Lyons, and Charles Milbury of the local baseball team were fined $10 in court costs. Now you got to think about this, guy. These players back then, if you're working some of these labor jobs, they were only making 16 cents an hour. So somebody fine you $10, man, that's a submission, sufficient amount, man. I'm telling you. And that $10, and that also included $6.67 each court costs, right? And the reason they got fined, they got fined for over driving and beating a horse belonging to livery man Ivan Albert and earlier that day. So they had played a baseball game in Pleasant Hill, was a suburb outside of Lebanon, and they were trying to get back to work. So in their anxiety to get back as quickly as they can, they whipped and lashed the horse and left pronounced marks on the horse as they went up Cumberland Street there in Lebanon. And a local man reported them to the police and to the Lebanon County Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. And so the police went to the men's job because they finally made it to work, right? So they were trying to get there. They're whipping this horse, right? They made it to work. And so the police went there and he promptly charged them. But however, the employer really needed their labor. So he went ahead and paid the men's fine, and they were allowed to return back to their job and continue working. So I'm sure that he took that money out of their paycheck. I'm almost sure that they never saw that money again, right? So I don't know. I don't know if you find that interesting or not. Here's one thing: you couldn't beat a horse, right? And cruelty to animals. But there was some cruelty going on to people too at that same time. If you can imagine this, that same year, 1912, 64 people were lynched in America, right? That's cruelty right there, right? And 62 of those people were African American, two were whites. And that is racial terror for the African Americans for sure. 64 lynchings, but you couldn't beat a horse. There are some people who will treat their animals better than people. I'm sure you've seen them before. I certainly have myself. I see nobody's commenting on that one, right? All right, so let me see if I can give you one more, and then I'll be out here because I have so many I could give you from here. Let's see. How about this one? Julius Rainey Bibbs, a future Chicago American Giant. Now, this happened in May the 12th, 1934. Julius Rainey Bibbs, originally born down in Kentucky, I think it's Henderson, Kentucky, and then he was raised in Terre Haute, Indiana. And when I actually interviewed his widow, he was living in Indianapolis and had been a teacher at the same high school that Oscar Robinson attended, right? And he had been a biology teacher at that school for maybe 40 years. So that's anyway, Julius Bibbs, a future Chicago American Giant. Well, he played for several teams, but he certainly played for the Kansas City Monarchs too. He's an infielder. He hit a home run in Indiana State's 12-7 win over Ball State Teachers College in Terre Haute, Indiana, in college baseball action. And so a lot of these African American ball players, of course, you know, they went to HBCUs, and there are a few that went to predominantly white schools, of course, in the North, not the South. And one of those people I think about is Joe Lillard, who was over at Oregon State. And then you had Owen Spalding. I think he was up in Idaho. Then you had Rainey Bibbs, who was at Indiana. Indiana State, and he's by the way, he's in their Hall of Fame. He's also in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. But think about this, guys. When I found him years ago and began talking about him and highlighting him in my book and things like this, he was in nobody's Hall of Fame. So I feel like I made a difference on getting some of these players recognition. But I have to tell you this, I am not through yet. There are so many more people who need to be recognized for their contributions, not only to baseball, to American society as a whole, right? And to other sports, the multi sport athletes that I've talked about all winter long and all summer long. And how about this? Bibbs was one of those guys. He played football at Indiana as well, and was quite the football player as well. So I love talking about those players. So if I had to close with one, I'm trying to think, what one would I want to close with? All right. I'm going to close with this one. I think this is the good one. And I do want to thank you for joining, everyone. Don't forget that we're trying to go for our 868 subscribers, which is my Sahara old number. I haven't been pushing that as hard, but just know we're bringing information, and people, if they don't know I exist, because I've sold lots of books, so people know me from that. And then I've been on this social media, but the social media is kind of tricky because if people don't hit like, if they don't comment, if they don't share, it doesn't get picked up by the algorithm. So you can be dropping down some dope knowledge and no one will ever know you that you're out there, right? And so I don't know, I want to make sure that we're doing this. And the same thing with books. You can write a great book, which I've done several. Matter of fact, this book here, outstanding book, outstanding book. Ask me how many people have called me to review it. None, none. Outstanding book has won awards from people who read books, right? And it won a Best of Illinois Book Award. It's been read through by scholars, right? But it's not a scholarly book. It's a book for everyone, but it's loaded with knowledge and it has an advanced our knowledge of African American baseball players, and that's my whole goal. If I can achieve that, I'm doing a lot. But I cannot do that just for books alone or just this social media alone. It takes a lot. So I speak a lot, and newspapers aren't what they used to be. It's a whole lot, right? So just know that we are going to. And thank you for dropping in, Ron. Appreciate that. So I'm going to end with let's see. I'm going to end. with May 12th, 1905. So tonight I've jumped around. I'm going to jump around a lot now because I'm going to make sure when you come on, I hit the hot spot, right? So May 12th, 1905, Dan McClellan, pitching for the Philadelphia Giants, shut out Newark's Eastern League team 4-0 at Atlantic City, New Jersey. And it was the fourth time, not the first, not the second, not the third. It was the fourth time in one season that the Philadelphia Giants had beat this team that's one step under the National and American League. Many of their players on there had played for the National and American Leagues. Matter of fact, their pitcher that he beat on this day, John McPherson, he's a former big league pitcher, was on the mound for Newark. He allowed 5 hits and struck out one and walked one in his losing effort. So when you celebrate these gentlemen who are played in the National American League, which that's only the people they used to celebrate when I was coming along, or maybe some minor leaguer who had done something great, they never celebrated people like Dan McClellan. No matter, you could beat them a dozen times, they would never celebrate them. Guys, I'm going to tell you this, and believe me, over the past 40 years that I've been engaged in this history, and now I've got 45 years under my belt, I'm in my 46th year. I have done everything I can to change the way we look at it. Now there are people who are telling my stories, and so they're considered the people who are the great storytellers. But just know this: when it comes to being original, to telling these stories, man, I'm out there. And even when I first started, John Hallway, I mentioned him, and Jim Riley, who passed not too long ago. They were out there, but the big difference were this: they're older. They were older than me. I was like 23, and they were older, and they wrote differently than I wrote, and so I knew that I was writing my people's history, and I saw it differently. And I wanted to bring our real feel to the game, and I still try to do that. So I wrote history, baseball history, from an African American point of view, which was totally unique when it came to this. And I am still here, man, blessed. And as the years go by, like I said, I've been talking about Dave Kemp, lost a good friend. Dave Kemp was an excellent historian and sold out to history. And he was going to always make sure that he's going to talk about it and be about it. And I met Dave maybe close to 40 years ago. And his friend was with him all the way through the end, right? And so, but these are the people you meet. This is the history you get to know. And I hopefully some of you will be that next generation, or maybe someone will hear this, but they won't hear it, guys, unless we share it. We got to reach those young people. And I look at my totals to see what age I'm reaching. So I'm always trying to reach some younger people. So I'm going to bleed a little bit more current baseball history in there because, to be honest with you, when I was a kid, I wanted to know about all baseball. And they lead off with Babe Ruth, and then you get around to Ty Cobb and Joe DiMaggio, certain names you would just get, right? But you never got the names that I gave you. None of these names I gave you tonight would you have ever been able to find anything on in books 40 years ago. So times have changed, we have changed, but we can't go back to those days. And I refuse to do that. And as long as I have breath in my chest, I'm going to continue to celebrate these men and celebrate African American baseball history. This is a very serious topic to me because this is my legacy, this is my past, and my future needs to be bright. So thank you everybody for joining in tonight. I appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it, whatever you can do to keep this broadcast moving and growing and letting people know that I'm out here. And guys, I've got some speaking engagements coming up. So when I come back, I will actually drop some information on those. And so lots of exciting things. Just know that baseball is alive and well. It's a $1 billion business and multi-billion-dollar business. And it's about to probably be $1 trillion business with the inflation that we're facing these days. So anyway, thank you, everyone. I will see you tomorrow with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. And hopefully, you enjoyed the information on the no-nos, the no-hitters, and also the broken bones, no hitters and broken bones. All right. Have a nice evening. See you later. Bye.